You know Petra already? Is this like a family group that we're here? No, you don't know everybody? Okay.
Half and half.
Okay. Okay. So what can I say about Petra? You do so much stuff that it's hard to pinpoint any one thing that you do. But disability culture is huge in terms of the kinds of things you do. So that's sort of a central vision of what you do. Women's studies, disability studies, performance, poetry. If if you want to feel good in your body, I mean, that's my experience with the things that Petra does. That I know that's something that when I first became a part of SDS, that I wasn't as comfortable being in my body. I was comfortable being who I was, but not being in the body that I had. And reading Petra's work has helped me be more comfortable with the body that I have.
Thank you. Oh, what a wonderful thing to say, Susan. Thank you. That is just beautiful. That moves me a lot. I'm so glad you're saying that. Thanks. Yeah.
And so you can take it away.
I'll take it away. So hello, everybody. It's just delightful to see you all here. I am come to you from up north Michigan. I made sure that you could see the reflection of the beautiful lake. Here, I want to honor that this is the ADA Michigan celebrations. Michigan is beautiful. It is the end of July. And hence, of course, I also come with you with my bathing suit on. You know, that's the official uniform of up north Michigan at the end of July. And a bit later today, I will be in the lake that you're seeing in the reflection here. Oh yeah, so audio description. I am a white woman with yellow glasses. I have an asymmetrical shirt that shows off a nice brown tan from lots of sunny days up north Michigan. And right next to my head is a reflection in a window that shows beautiful old hemlock trees. And you see the blue slice of Crystal Lake in the window as well. I come to you from Odawa territory. So this is the Three Fires Confederacy. And I will begin by speaking to you about this. This is a disability culture meeting and it's an ADA meeting. So we have a meeting of a form of minority culture, and we have something that associates states and state legislations. Those two things can often be in quite a lot of conflict and contrast with one another. So I'm going to start us up by thinking about some of those complexities. My first poem will be from Alison Adele Hedgecock, who is a Huron, Métis, French Canadian, Portuguese, English, Irish, Scot, and mixed Southeastern Native heritage poet. So she is a very well-known Indigenous poet who sees herself also as part of disability culture. And she is one of the people associated with an organization called, I'm going to say this quite slowly, Zoeglossia, ZOOGLOSSIA. And that organization is an organization specifically for disabled poets. So I want to call out to them and have them in this space. Zoeglossia. The poem is Measuring Up, and it's a poem that speaks about what culture has to bring to disability. So if we think about the ADA, the American with Disabilities Act, as something that allows a cultural way of acknowledging the oppression of disabled people, we also at this point, 30 years into the growth of the American with Disabilities Act, need to acknowledge that there's still a lot of growing to do, and there's lots of people who are falling outside the framework of the ADA. So listen to Measuring Up. It wasn't socks missing from his feet, not elbow cloth unraveled unilaterally, not equal displacement of chin and brow, nor the eye that sat a bit lower on the right. It was his knuckle that made me weep, clove corners gone wayside, like minuscule meat hooks clawed away bits of him each shift he made, invisible, a timeliness unfurled. It was his muscle torn through, festering. The prosthetic hand, finger-width dismay all across his attempted grin, left there just like that for anyone to see. It was his mercy. In the end, we're rarely beautiful, mostly placed away from compromising situations into poses offsetting what has become of us in some Gorka's unnerving eyes. Yet he is still here in mine, and I'm human because of it. Maybe only, maybe. So that's Alison Hedgecock. It's a poem about what it means to be in an aging environment, what it means to be surrounded by people whose bodies have been damaged by age and by war. It's a complicated poem because it's also a poem that allows us to have feelings about someone else. But Alison is a disabled poet herself, and she knows that our bodies have meanings and that we need to that we need to widen whom we think of as being human. The link I'm now going to make is through the language of the land on which I'm sitting. So I mentioned this is Odawa territory and Three Fires Confederacy territory. And one of the languages of this land is Anishinaabe. It's one of the languages of Michigan. So I have here a translation from a wonderful poet friend, Margaret Newton, who also is a poet in the Made in Michigan series, the Wayne State University series. And she translated for us Black Lives Matter. And here is, in the Michigan language, Black Lives Matter, which is the next point we're going to address. Api tenda gojiwak, mekade wejik. I'm going to read that one again. I think some people probably need to mute themselves, which is okay. All right. I'm going to read that again because it's important. Black Lives Matter. Api tenda gojiwag, bekande wijwik. Okay. All right, so we're moving from this to another disabled poet. It's a Black disabled poet, Danez Smith. Danez is non-binary and uses they, and Danez lives in Minnesota. But Danez lived for a while in Michigan, and I had the pleasure to know them in Michigan. So I'm going to read one of Danez's poems in order to link this through so we can think more about the coming of age of the ADA. 30 is not really quite coming of age, but at 18, which is coming of age, at 18, the ADA finally embraced HIV plus and AIDS as a disability concern. It took a long time. This is one of the interesting issues with the ADA. Everything takes a long time. That's the way that the settler states operates. So in 2008, for the first time, HIV plus was recognized as a condition that was covered by the ADA. And that is the point of Danez's activism, is around HIV plus. It won't be a bullet. That's the title of the poem. It won't be a bullet. Becoming a little moon, bright warm in me one night. Thank God, I can go quietly. The doctor will explain death and I'll go practice. In the catalogue of ways to kill a black boy, find me buried between the pages stuck together with the red stick. Ironic, predictable. Look at me. I'm not the kind of black man who dies on the news. I'm the kind who grows thinner and thinner and thinner until light outweighs us and we become it. Family gathered around my barely body, telling me to go toward myself. All right, so with honoring the land on which I'm coming from here and honoring two other disabled poets, I'm now moving to my own work. And I have a sense that now everybody who is going to be with us is with us right now. So I just want to do a little bit more setup for the rest of the session. This is a disability culture session, so I would invite you to be as comfortable as you can be. I invite you also to think about what Zoom does to us. Many of us only been on Zoom now about 3 months, if that, and a certain kind of protocol has established itself, right? I mean, we all know how we're supposed to behave on Zoom. Or many of us do, and some people are still kind of getting used to it, but there is a certain way in which we're supposed to behave. And disabled people have been very good in not behaving well according to the scripts of dominant society. So I invite you to think about how else we can use Zoom. So right now I can see all your gazes very kindly focused on me, which is great. And it's also going to get very exhausting. You know, staring for an hour at someone's face is really hard to do. So I invite you to just let your gaze wander. Look around. Maybe there's a window in your room. Just look out of that window. Check out what is around you. Maybe you want to sit back a bit more. You might notice that even though I'm the presenter here, I'm not putting myself fully centrally, really close to the camera, which would be much more common for a presenter. But I'm interested, again, in how I can be both accessible, you know, so recognizable. If I were to do something totally different, then that would not be accessible. It would be very experimental, but it wouldn't be accessible. I'm trying to be in the middle, to be both accessible and to be to rethink of how we can be most comfortable. Like Susan, what you said at the beginning, right? I'm so glad that I made you feel comfortable in your own body. That seems to me the most important thing that we can do when disabled people come together, how we can be more comfortable and how we can find comfort with each other in a world that is still not really friendly to disabled body minds. So hang out however is good for you. Quite a few of you here have the camera off, which has become the convention for how to be comfortable in a Zoom convention, and I'm completely comfortable with that. But you might also put your camera on and just be not in the picture, or hang out really far back in the picture. All of those are perfectly good choices, and I welcome them all. All right, so I'm now going to the first poem from my book, Gut Botany. Okay, you see this book here? And I will use audio description like I did at the beginning, because that's one of the many beautiful disability culture methods that we have. And I think instead of me audio describing this book, I'm going to invite us all to be part of the audio description. So let's create a poem together by looking at this book and describing what you're seeing. So I'm going to put this up. And now I invite you to unmute yourself if you're happy to be part of this. And please describe what you're seeing.
Petra is holding the book in front of her face. It is titled Gut Botany. It is white with a gray reptilian creature on a sere, perhaps Martian landscape.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you, Mark. And someone else has something to add to that, or to have a different story of what you see. Just go for it, people.
Petra is peeking to try to look at us from behind the book, and it's really funny because she hides, and then she's hiding right now, and then she's looking again, and she's going to hide again.
Excellent. And one more. Tell us something about the thing on the book.
I think it's a salamander. And,
oh, cool.
And it's low to the Martian Earth. And I'm familiar with them, and they kind of bob up and down sometimes, but this guy's like planking. He's very low and flat. And his body's cut off halfway. So we're seeing half his body across the bottom of the book, and above it says Gut Botany, and the writing somehow seems similar in its font to the language of the creature.
Oh, fabulous. Wow. Wow. I mean, really, why do I need to read poems? We just continue with this. It seems it's really rich, interesting, poetic environment already. Anybody else sees anything else, like a last one? Oh yeah, we have one more. Thank you. Leora sees the slightly loose, sketchy, fishy creature, fish on the rocks. Oh, that's great. Lovely. Well, I just adore what you all came up with. Martian landscape sounds really great to me. And I love that people are thinking about it as a salamander, as a fish. That's fabulous. So it actually, for me, or something hanging from his mouth. Leora sees something hanging from his mouth. Yeah, those are barbels. So this creature, what I see is a sturgeon, and that's one of the Michigan fish, right? So sturgeons. And actually, there is a sturgeon revitalization program not very far from where I am right now. So I'm in Frankfort, Michigan, and just a little bit further south is the Little River Band of Ottawas. They have a sturgeon revitalization program in the Manistee River. So, so that's really cool. So I'm just slowing down a little bit. I know when I'm speaking a bit too fast, I want the interpreter to catch up. So it's a sturgeon revitalization program. And these things here at the sturgeon's mouth are barbels with which the sturgeon can feel and touch and sense its environment at the bottom of lakes and seas. And somehow I'm just completely fascinated by these creatures. They are survivors. They are very old. They have nearly been hunted to extinction in many of the environments around here, but they are slowly revitalizing. They are coming back through the care of people, through the interdependent web that is all around us. So that level of interdependent web is how I understand disability culture to operate too. So we are endangered creatures who are in need of one another. And the sturgeon is in that kind of place as well. And the sturgeon is also freaky and weird. You know, if you come across the sturgeon, you're probably going to be like slightly freaked. When you come upon me on my wheelchair or my scooter, many people get quite freaked. I mean, it's just a thing. It's real, you know. So I love that little insertion of difference that the freaky creatures offer to us. The sturgeon is also a creature that's from all over the world. So I'm from Germany. I grew up in Germany, was educated there first, and the sturgeon is called the Stör, S-T-O, you know, like an O with umlauts, weird word, and then an R at the end. That is the sturgeon in German. So I also love that the sturgeon connects all the different places that I'm living. You know, you can literally, a sturgeon could theoretically move all the way from the German coast through the St. Lawrence waterway to the Great Lakes here, which seems pretty cool to me because they live both in salt water and in fresh water. So the sturgeon. So here, there was this German woman, this German girl growing up in Germany, and I was barely able to get an education in Germany because we did not have the ADA. I came to this country because of the ADA. So for all the issues, the problems of the ADA, it is the one thing that makes me want to be and live in this country. This is one of the few countries in the world that offers someone like me the access to operate, to work as a professor, to be in a professional environment. This is not a given in any other country I've ever lived in. Even now, I would not be able, I still can't be able, I'm still not able to get to the performance studies department in which I tried to study in Germany. When I tried to study there, I had to stem myself up. Like, I'm using my arms here, so I'm using my arms, I'm stemming myself down. I had to put my hands down on the steps of the stairs and go up on my butt one step at a time in order to make it up to the seminar. That was my education. And then one of the few feminist professors, one of the few female professors and feminist professors in the department ultimately moved her class at the University of Cologne in order for me to be able to actually finish my degree program, because it was just getting too much for me to do what I was doing. So, you know, ADA, thank you. Thank you, ADA. Happy 30th. And let's dive into, I'm going to read the first one to you. The first one is called Gut Botany, and we've already heard now a lot about the fish. In this one, I invite you to do some actions with me. My poetry is never just about listening. I always invite you to be part of it, to just hang out with me, to be there with me. So I will ask you at one point 3 things: to bow forward and to hold your heart, right? Then second, I ask you to bow forward and to hold your stomach. And third, it's ADA 30, so we're past 18. I ask you to hold your sexual organs and bow forward. Okay? So those are the 3 things. Just do them with me. You see me doing it, even though I've got a mic in front of me, so it's complicated, but we'll do it together. Sucker punch, the knife in the street, fear of being sheared out of the stream into the backwater. Dead fish belly up by the side of the pond. Pills and poisons and endings, let go and sever the ties and ignore the party is always elsewhere. A shadow in a canoe, in a photo, likely put on Facebook tomorrow. Fake of having fun behind the grass, tree, a Stephen King book where I know the next sentence already. Primacy of white, masculine fear. Close the leaky gut, body drained of tears. Just speak. Walk with me. Close the loop. Bow forward. Pour yourself into your capable hands and hold your heart. And release. Bow forward. Pour your stomach into your feeble hands. Release the binds that bind so tightly to your spinal column. Release your stomach. Release. Now bow again. Drop your sexual organs into waiting hands. Wait. Breathe in, out, in, soothe. And release. Fish slip into the labyrinth of intestines, cruise past the atlas, feed on the carpet fibers of worry. Agile between the lung pearls, hollow behind the liver, green wall, delicate black veins spider along for companionship, dark purple, maroon. Fins soothe the red spots of tension, white bands where muscles have leached nourishment out of tight bands. Between kidney and uterus, raspy tongue licks soggy dahlias on their stalks, ovaries bloom. Glide, mucus oils the way. Swim among the velvet, you and me into plump cushions, sturgeon tumbling ground. All right. Thank you. So that's the first poem. And as I said, this is about figuring out what people do with the poems. So I've invited you to hold these 3 areas: your heart, your stomach, and your sexual organs. Now, in many different cultures, those areas have a meaning. You know, they're not neutral. They're not just any odd places. Like, I don't know whether the middle of the lower arm has any kind of cultural signification in any culture. I don't really know it. Or there might be acupressure points that we could talk about. But those 3 areas, the heart, the stomach, and the sexual organs, have lots and lots of names in different cultures. So I would just invite maybe 2 or 3 of you to speak about what it feels to be invited to hold these areas. What are you feeling? What cultural associations come up for you? Is there something there that you can speak to? So I've done this quite a lot with people, and when the pandemic first started, I came into quite a few classrooms. Like I was going and visiting a lot of different poets out there and visiting their classrooms, both disability culture classrooms, poetry classrooms. And at that point, students were all over the world, right? And so that was often my opening question. I was reading this poem to them, and then I was asking them to think about what those areas meant in their cultures. And I just got so many interesting answers back. It's just been fascinating to think about how our body signifies in many different cultural environments. So, for instance, the heart, what is that? What are your associations with holding your heart when you do this? When you bow forward, you take a breath.
Reminded me of a vow and like pledging myself to something.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. A vow. Beautiful. Leora writes something too. Let me get there. Uncomfortable to hold sexual organs on recorded Zoom. Yeah, well, fair enough. Yes. Well, you don't have to show us that you're holding them. But I acknowledge that. It's kind of weird. So there's a weirdness. I mean, that's in itself is an interesting thing, that how culturally we have a great taboo on holding our sexual organs. It's a big deal for many people to do this, both in public and in private. Elaine, please. Yes.
Yes. And just saying those words out loud.
Sexual organs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there are just so many vibrations and frequencies around all of these associations. For me, heart is the most essential. It is really the most important center for most of us, our heart. That's our being, that's our essence. And that's where hope is, which we need right now, always, but especially now.
Yeah.
For me, the stomach, when I get upset and I have problems, I got stomach problems. I don't know about the rest of you, but I got stomach problems.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to me because it is so universal that we have bodies. We all have bodies, and we all have our own personal relationship with our own bodies and with other bodies, but especially with our own bodies. And we have such, well, I'll just be open because that's my way. I'm almost 71. And what just flooded me, and I said, okay, this is a place where you're supposed to be open, so I will. So I have just finally, over the last few months, managed to masturbate effectively personally by myself without a partner involved.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because as a child, I was interrupted repeatedly when I was trying to do this, and it became a source of shame. And I think this is common for a lot of us. So I don't know how many of y'all will talk about such things, but I'm to the point in life where I'll talk about just about anything. But that's a pretty big deal for a lot of us, I think, touching ourselves down there.
Right, absolutely. Elaine, thank you so much. That's wonderful. Thank you. And I also acknowledge that it does take courage to say that, right? I mean, feminism is a lot longer. It's been a lot longer around than the ADA, and we still haven't managed to undo the shame that surrounds our sexuality, and particularly masturbation, any kind of sexual practices. And I'm just, it's wonderful that you're speaking to that. And it's very meaningful to me that you're bringing this up in this context. So that's fabulous. Yes, the fact that, absolutely, girl, absolutely. We're giving each other the I love you sign here, which is wonderful. Yeah, so this is so wonderful. When I read this poem, I can see people having very strong responses. I mean, the heart, indeed, the this center of feeling, but also the stomach. You know, you can't really see this because I'm on Zoom and you can only see this tiny bit of me here, but I'm a woman of size, right? So I do carry around quite a nice big stomach. And just holding our stomach is such an issue for so many people. You know, just the shame that we carry around that. And you know, that's something to think about. You know, what is it that we can't just hold our stomach, release it from these binds that bind us, you know, that make it so hard for us to take a full breath in public. You know, this is something that particularly with the younger people in classes, we often talk about, you know, how it restricts our breathing, that we're in a culture that is so sizist. And there's a nice chat entry here. I'm going to read that out. Yes, Mark Ramosa, and disabled people are desexualized in Normate's eyes. Exactly. And then Susan writes, desexualized or hypersexualized. Indeed. Yes, so owning your own sexuality, holding your sexual organs in your own hands, it's such an important step. Yes, and so in this poem, I'm weaving the fishy world, where I just weave the places where I can find comfort. I'm not going to read, I don't think I will, maybe I'll read it at the end, but a significant part of gut botany's journey was that I was sexually assaulted because I am a disabled woman. It was very clear. Actually, I will read that. Yes, I mean, we've got that in here. I'll just go to this one. So I will, I give you a trigger warning here. So if you find a non-graphic description of sexual assault, if you find that triggering, you might want to just turn up the sound up for a little while, and I will raise my hand like this when that poem is over, okay? Just to make sure that if you don't want to listen to that, you don't have to listen to that. And I know myself, as someone who's writing this book was part of my healing journal as someone who experienced sexual assault. And for a long time, and even now, I find it very hard to listen to this if I'm not warned, okay? So this, please keep yourself well. I go to this one right now, and after that I read you a nice love poem. It's called Court Theatre. I thank the bowl of my hips. I thank the soft edges of my skull, my sternum. Big bone presses down, my liver wraps itself around and breathes out toxic, smooth wood and green upholstery, butts, hair and really dark clothes, raised dyes at the far end. She calls them to her, conferral. You do not know what is going on. There's code and negotiation. How will you begin? Woman with big silver chains over a lilac patterned blouse gestures. Man speaks low, tie straight down and sharp. Bewildered clients stare straight ahead. No one looks around. No one looks around. Was the performance in line with or a departure from what you experienced? He pressed down there and over, the muscles strain, liquid darker, this hurts, he does not care and presses, inches, note the finger down and into tender, my breasts, mine, again, now, really, spots sore, inside, bruises, not for any hospital, telephone chains, survivor language, note to speak, note. Police station, marble floor echoes when I make my report through a window above my head, glassed in, booms, instead suspicion. What happened then? Massage action. I can barely remember now. Are you sure you did not ask for it? How will you live now? No, I did not ask. My breast felt bruised, squeezed hard, fibers spring out of their sockets, shape new contours, body I do not know. I did not ask for that. Why did I not run when I swat away his hands, naked, my wheelchair outside? I can't run. I am bound to these words. My neck bristles right now. I write down these glimpses of memory, words I remember dredging up, for the policewoman, the guy at the station, the man in the suit. How did the sight influence your performance? The prosecutor in the courthouse, the corridor, outside the bathroom, consultation, ties, high heels. Tell me what you know about dismemberment. No. Tight bands across my breasts, still never really quite back into their shape, the life tenderness, ruptured jelly capsules. No, I won't go to the hospital either. Take your hands away now, take your words away, your stories of what is right for massage and who asks for what, happy ending jokes, vulnerable wheelchairs, the cripple in the waiting room, who sits on the seats of the courthouse. We sit here, legs crossed. She sits, he sits. We hear stories of robberies. Is your client pleading? What was it like for you to see what you said through another person's body? I am pleading to let me out, let go of my nipples, to stop. No, I can hardly feel where the hand goes, around my pubic bone, my leg joint. Femur cracks in its orbit. There was a hand there and fingers. Where did the defendant place his hand exactly? My senses layer and story. We wheel into the courthouse and I swat away sensation and the pressure, the blood comes to the surface again and prickles in my neck hairs upright. And this is a classic PTSD episode, she says. Watch the light go and go and go and go and no. I say, I know I said that, and I repeat it, and you better listen to me, man Thai. She is the ideal victim. I repeat what I said just right. Did your partner's words affect your body? If so, how? Just exactly. Just smooth the way into the courthouse where we all sit. The lights are on overhead right now. He sits right in front of me, 2 rows up. I can see the back of his head. I do not want to see his face again, ever. I hold my breasts, my hands cross over, skin soft and red, rooted. Breathe into the sternum, deepen, flat, amulet and a band, velvet soft green bone. I thank the fascia snapping back into place. I thank the blood that is new and red and can't remember where it went, what it colored. I thank the lungs. Did the performance open up another way for you to see your own language? Breathe and heave, and it's been a year. My kidneys are breathing. It's okay to be thankful, and no, this is not therapy. What are the consequences of silence? This is a fucking. All right. Okay. Poem is over. That's why I raised my hand. And yeah, so some of the voices that you heard here coming in was my disability culture way of surviving and healing. I called upon the web that I'm part of. Thank you, Beth wrote, thank you, and thank you back. Beth was the person who was with me in the courtroom and probably remembers some of what I wrote about here. I called upon this web of connection, of friendship, of creative companionship as well. Some of the lines that you heard here, those questions about like, what are the consequences of silence and tell me what you know about dismemberment, they came from Banu Kapil, who is a wonderful poet writer. Others of these questions about how did the sight influence your performance came from Perel. Perel is a genderqueer disabled dance artist out of New York City who were with me for a while, and we were creating performances. And so that's where all these different language bits come from. So I have the languages of my disabled poet performance people as part of my support web. I can call upon them. It's a form of incantation. Yeah. All right. Thank you. I love reading what I see here on the chat. And I'm just going to move us along to something else now. Okay. I'm going to read you. How about a love poem? Would you like to listen to a love poem from here? That's probably a good thing to read after this. Okay. This poem is called Contours. and it explodes on the page. So I haven't showed you yet the inside of this gorgeous book, but you'll see here is the title page, and the title pages have different colors. I'm so grateful to Wayne State University that they created this beautiful object. So here is a maroon page, and you heard maroon, of course, earlier in the first poem, you know, when I talk about the colors of the inside of the body. That was the instruction I gave to the designer. I would like the colors of the inside of the body. And so they took that very literal, and they just created these gorgeous things. Others have different colors, like this one. Wait. Like here's a more venal blood, like a purplish blood. So they all have slightly different colors. Anyway, so the sturgeon is on there again, and the sturgeon is upright. So it looks a bit like a strange creature, and it reminds me of those of us, I think, Mark, you spoke about the Martian grounds. So I love this kind of the strangeness, the speculative, the science fiction aspect of that. But the poem on the page is also exploded. So the first part I read is always quite like a little nucleus like that, so that you see all the words tightly together. And then as the poem progresses, it all explodes on the page. So I'm now holding up a page, and you see the word cloud just going all over. Okay. This is the inside, this outside. That is your skin against mine. Your palm runs down my front. Breasts retreat, forward arch. I urge you on in my back. My toes loop your hair, twist. You lie across my liver, soften into the heave, pressed juices flow finer. Your foot across thin skin on the inside, my underarm. My blue vein open into the green grass, pulse. Your heel colors drags t-shirt up trails, bride's bouquet where soft white belly blinks. Small beetle finds space behind your vertebrae, breeze through her old nest. We play splayed amid shoots. Water deep below. My shirt is damp afterward, my face. You still look poised. We bear on the grass carpet. The beetle wonders about her short histories. Birds witness when I burrow my foot into your armpit. I kneel here, lower my face into hollows, feed the pond at our feet, bathe me dark in meadow. Give way, wind, beetle, bird call, circle overhead on your round, snail-like trace. All right. So that's one of the love poems in there, because all my poetry books are full of love poems, which those of you who know my books know that. That's all kinds of different ones. Okay, let's see. Okay, we have a little bit more time left. I'm going to end the reading on one last poem, and that is a poem that brings us back to the ADA, to rights, to both the celebration of rights and the complexities of who is given rights and who still has to fight for something different. You know, so I want to point to disability justice, which is a conception of disability, our path into the future, that is particularly held by people of color disability fights. So it's different. I'm saying this in a complicated way because I don't want to use disability rights around disability justice, right? So there's two different concepts. Disability rights, that's trying to fight for equal access to employment opportunities and education opportunities. And then disability justice, which is a concept that is much more grounded in an intersectional analysis of the violence that has been perpetuated and continues to be perpetuated against so many people of color. And that will always shape how we think about employment and education and those other things that the ADA has indeed helped to push forward. Right? Does that make sense as an analysis here? There's a different way of thinking about how we can shape a more just future together, whether we can only do so through the framework of rights from a state perspective, a settler state's perspective, or whether we can think about justice as something that acknowledges that we need to think beyond the state, much more about intersectional analysis, much more about communal effort, much more about the kind of interdependent webs that I've been stressing throughout this reading today. Blues. So this one's called The Blues. It's the blues. And again, I am deeply acknowledging so many others who've written about the blues, and so many different both theorists and artists who call on the musical formation of the blues, the beat, and the break in the beat to move us forward. Mark. Into the long, lush spiral, curl around a finger's point, your jeans hesitation, your dark morning tears, the old left side ache, the twisted leg bone, and that tender space beneath your breast. Come close to me, come close. Your criminality becomes legible in the context of my race. Mark. I will release you, go and see me drift far away and loosen this tight pain, my sadness torn. We stretch our human fibers, wood tensile, balancing acts to grow into the gender non-conforming nebula. My blue note soothes you on the wide living edge of your teeth. I think about the greenness of bones, resilient twigs, a bower for me. Our life in the protection of rights. Safe on the other side of your mouth, your tongue electric copper buds open, rising. My blue note soothed, red and blue and red flash between your teeth. The mouth cave, soft floor. Mark. How did these scissors end up in the chest? The judge asks her. I do not live excluded from the certainty that the legal system exists to protect me. Rhythms runs, undisturbed. Mark, you. My hibernation at night, falling time, my pillow and yours. Illegible loves in harmonies, a rest for our blue note. Vibration, sensation, red note, rising white. Okay, thank you. Thanks for listening, you all. Let's see, we have 5 minutes left, so I just want to make sure that we have some space for any questions that people have. Yes, that's lovely. So Elaine Kolb writes here, compassionate inclusion with restorative justice is essential. Yes, I totally agree with that. That is what this is moving, hopefully, towards acknowledgement of our investments and involvements in the systems of oppression that surround us, and yet an acknowledgement of interdependence and love as ways that can hopefully move us into a future beyond and with the revolution that we find ourselves in right now. Do we have any questions or comments here?
Yes, I would. This is Elaine Cole.
Mm-hmm.
We're really at such a powerful moment. And my feeling is that we have all been led and guided to be here together. And we are called to do amazing things because it's needed. And we are much more powerful than we usually like to give ourselves credit for, because we have been put down so often that we've internalized that we don't have power. And yet the fact is that individually and especially collectively, we have so much power precisely because we have deeply suffered and managed to adapt, survive, and thrive in our own ways, or we wouldn't be here today.
Thank you, Elaine. Yes. We can call on our privilege, we can call on our power, we can call on our ability to connect with one another. There's many ways forward. Yeah.
Anyone else?
I want to point to another part of Michigan's current cultural scene. I want to shout out to the Allied Media Conference, which is a conference that just happened last week in Detroit. It's always Detroit based. It's run by it's run by activists, which are very much in contact with many disabled people as well. Adrienne Marie Brown is one of the people very much associated with the Allied Media Conference, and Pauline Alexis Gums. I'm going to write some of these names down. Adrienne Marie Brown and okay, so I'm pointing those out because if you were to go to that, you get a very interesting sense of how other activists are right now thinking in a really important intersectional way about how to move us forward in this moment of revolution, in this moment of pandemic, and in this moment of economical collapse. So those three portals that we're currently moving through, how can we activate those in order to move us forward into a new political reality? So I encourage you to Google Allied Media Conference, because all of their plenaries were available for free and are still continuing to be available on YouTube right now. So it's a really interesting way for us to look for allies and companions and co-conspirators. Thank you, Alex.
There's just something on that poem which was just amazing. You said about it not being therapy and being quite kind of strong, kind of definite about that, and about how the importance of not being silent. So that just really kind of hit me.
Yeah. I think in my everyday life, I am not opposed to therapy, actually. I think therapy is a useful thing. And I think thinking about social therapy is also really important, to unlearn some of the patterns that we grew up in, whatever racialized formation we come from, to learn new patterns as we move forward. So I love somatics, cultural somatics, all those kinds of modalities are really important to me. So I think in my everyday life, I don't feel anti-therapy, but in terms of survival from sexual assault, I'm very clear that speaking out is political act, not just a personal therapy, right? So that is for me very much the context there. So thank you, Tracy. It's a really important point to, right? So that there can be real differentiations about how therapy and disability culture move together. Thank you. Thank you. There's a lot of people saying thank you. I'm so glad you're all here. Wow, wow.
And we are so glad you were here.
All right, let's see. Is it? Yes, and it's 3 o'clock. Shall we? And I'm going to close it now. Thank you once more. I'll bow to you all. Let's do that together. Let's take a breath. And then whatever way of respect that you show to one another, I just want to show you my respect for being in community together. I love that you are here with me. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Yay.